Welcome back to the cooking segment of Smidgen. We are back in the kitchen at Red Stick Spice with Madeline, store staffer Madeline. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
I'm so glad you're game for doing this with me. You're a trooper. Okay, so we've already got some things going. So this is all about, well, first of all, this is soup and sandwich segment. So you're down with both of those things,
I
soup
can
and
get behind
sandwich?
that, yes.
What is soup season, Madeline?
All
Which
year
day?
round.
Right, there you go. I could eat soups 365. So I am all about a puree soup, a soup that gets blended either with an immersion blender or a Vitamix, because it makes your cuts on your vegetables kind of not important. You can do like rough cuts. It doesn't matter because it all gets blended. So we do have all of our aromatics meaning our celery. You chopped up our celery, our onion, and our carrot. And we have those in the pot with the lid on. And so lots of steam escaping there. They're sizzling away. And we're not looking to build up a whole lot of like fond in the bottom of the pot. We don't want to, no reason to make any like color on the bottom of the pot.
What's fond?
So fond is when you're sauteing your onions and they start to scorch on the bottom.
Gotcha.
Or if you were doing animal protein and you seared that animal protein in the pan or pot and it scorched and had that's just brown goodness on the bottom there. That's all building flavor. So in South Louisiana, we call it gradu. Everyone has different names for it. But we're actually just looking to sweat these vegetables. So we just need them to get soft so that we can proceed with our soup. Because the soup comes together after this point, if you blink, you miss it, like really, really quickly, with lots of pantry staples. So we need a tablespoon of curry powder to go in, and I gave you a teaspoon because why? It's a teachable moment. How many? Thank you. 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon, you guys. Okay, so get that in and get that stirred and that lid back on there. And I'm going to start on the grilled cheese. So do you like grilled cheese?
I love grilled cheese.
Okay.
Who doesn't?
So we are going into the oven with this grilled cheese. We are going to make a slab grilled cheese. And it is super fun, feeds a crowd, and everyone needs to do this at home. So I've got this really thick bread. This is called Texas toast. And I am going to, rather than using butter, we are going to use mayonnaise on one side of each piece of bread. And I know you're not a fan, but
we discussed
we
it.
did. We discussed. What is mayonnaise?
Eggs and oil.
Eggs and oil.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of people are a little ooged out about mayo. Is it the look of it? Is it the smell of it?
I think it's the color.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. So what's going to happen, these eggs, which have lots of fat in them from the yolks, and the oil, which is fat, when we place it buttered or mayo side down on the pan and the heat from that pan hits it, what's it going to do? It's going to do the same thing butter does. It's going to brown. So it's less about it being a mayo sandwich and more about a delivery mechanism for browning. I'm going to go with that. I just made that up, but I like it. And as you know, I invent lots of cooking terms, one of which we're going to use again later in this segment. We don't know how to spell it, but we know what it means. Okay, so I've made myself a gigantic mess here. Let's see if I can get this organized. So mayo side down on the sheet pan. And then I'm going to start building these grilled cheese sandwiches. So put this one right here. I need more room, more space. So I'll put all our lids around the edge here. How's that? So mayo side down. Okay, now we need cheeses. So I've got a cheddar and a Monterey Jack. Other melty cheeses, you could go Gruyere, you could, do mozzarella if you wanted to. But I'm going to do cheddar, Monterey Jack, and another cheddar because we want them to be super cheesy. So I've got my oven pretty hot. It's right at 400 degrees. And what we're going to do is bake these grilled cheese sandwiches. I ran out of cheese. Okay, these two get double Monterey Jack. It'll be fine. Everybody, it's going to be just fine. Okay, so the lids go on, mayo side up, and this sheet pan that I'm building on is cool, but the sheet pan I'm going to put on top is in the oven.
Nice.
And so it's hot. So the reason why at home you'll be able to load up the sheet pan with sandwiches and put your second sheet pan on top. Red Stick Spice Oven doesn't allow that because these sheet pans ride on tracks, and so the two sheet pans would be on their own track and there would be no connection. So I actually have to do this where I build a foundation of sandwiches in the center, and then I take my hot sheet pan and set it on top. So since I have to use the smaller sheet pan so that they stay connected, I needed to make my sandwiches toward the center. But normally you could fill this whole sheet pan up, and now it needs a little bit of weight. You're not looking to like smash it to smithereens. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of weight on it, and that's a baking dish. Just put a baking dish right on top, and then that goes in the oven, and they're gonna toast, and we're gonna make grilled cheese to dip into our tomato soup.
Okay.
All right, so these go in the oven, and then we're gonna continue with our tomato soup. So one thing I wanna do is talk about the chopping of the aromatics, because we did a lot of that while we weren't here with the camera on. So I do want to talk about one of my, when we teach knife skills classes, and I know you've helped out with those classes. When we teach knife skill classes, my first rule when you're approaching a vegetable is to get to a flat side. So that first cut in the onion is straight through, so that then you have two flat sides. Turn them down on the flat sides, and then you are exponentially safer once you get to a flat side. So some things are super simple to think about. Cut a potato in half, cut an onion in half. Bell peppers are a little more tricky, but even a piece of celery can be tricky, and we want to make sure, even though there's not so much of a flat side to get to on celery, there is a great trick that we can do. So Amy Tortorich taught me this. She's a chef that helps me out here in the cooking classroom, and she actually teaches knife skills for us. But this is what she does. So you wouldn't want to cut with it on this side because it's rolling, and you have the possibility of it moving, and then your fingers are in the way and bad things happen. So this is how we get to our flat side.
Flatten.
Flat celery. Who knew? So then we're going to go this way. Again, you don't have to be precise about it. We don't need beautiful cuts because we're going to puree, but you're going to go this way, and then you're going to turn it. We're actually even going to make it easier because we're going to do it in halvesies. You're going to go this way, and then you're going to turn it, and then you're going to chop this way. So you do that for us while we get ready. And we've already got our celery in our soup, so we're just going to save this for another time because all of our aromatics are already soft. But I thought this was a great example of how you look at each vegetable and figure out, how am I going to get this as flat as possible so that it's safer. You did that lightning fast. Good job. So our aromatics have been simmering away, sweating, and getting soft, and we started them off in our harissa olive oil. So
Spicy.
it is spicy, but it also has a lot of those sweet sweet spices like cinnamon, allspice. Definitely one that I'm turning to more and more. I've been using it a lot on salmon. Do you like the harissa oil, or is it too spicy for you?
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm here for the spice.
Yeah. And so another thing I like with the harissa olive oil are sweet potatoes. Just that those great sweet spices that love sweet potatoes. So I grew up with brown sugar and
Butter.
pecans and butter on sweet potatoes. So for me to be in a place where I can use a lot of these spice blends and just some harissa olive oil, it's a pretty big leap for me. Okay,
Brown
let's
sugar's so good.
let's get this soup going. So what's next? Read our recipe and tell me what's next. We've got our curry powder in, so we must be ready for tomatoes and stock.
Yes.
And then our coconut milk as well. So let's take the lid off. First, isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
What does that smell like?
Definitely getting the cinnamon and allspice.
Right. So we use the Vindaloo curry powder, and when you see the descriptor Vindaloo, you know hot. That's what you can expect from anything entitled with the adjective Vindaloo. It's going to be quite spicy. But immediately what I smelled was coriander.
Definitely.
And I'm definitely getting a ton of ginger though. I'm
Yes.
smelling that for sure. So smells amazing. So I think we now at this point, it's just sort of like a dump, dump, dump. And we bring it up and get a little simmer going. And then we'll zhuzh it. You
All
know,
right.
that's
Go
our
the
other
tomatoes.
culinary term today. So we're going to pop our heat up quite a bit.
And goes the stock.
And then we've got full fat coconut milk. You could certainly do a light version, splash, a light version with this soup. The full fat coconut milk gives it a lot of richness, and that smells amazing. So I've got the heat cranked up quite a bit. And we should talk about why we're doing this menu in the first place, because we just came out of a podcast segment talking about stock versus broth. So do you know the difference?
I know you can make stock with this, but not
Yes.
technical.
So she's very familiar with seeing this at Red Stick Spice. So we constantly have a Ziploc bag going of, we keep two different types going. This will obviously be chicken stock because there's a chicken back in here along with vegetables, but we also do lots of vegetable stocks here in the store. So we teach 4 or 5 cooking classes a week. We do lots and lots of cutting of vegetables. And all of that would normally go in the garbage can actually ends
Or
up
compost.
being, there you go,
There we go.
actually ends up being stock. So I wanted to show what kind of our rules for what should be in a stock and what shouldn't be in a stock. So all of these cuttings are from the aromatics that are in that pot. So I've got the end of the onion along with the skins. I've got the tops of the celery. This, I love celery leaves. I put them on salads. This is a completely edible thing that either gets trimmed off when they sell it to us at the grocery store. I know for sure my mother threw this in the trash. But they're tender, they're very sweet, and they do great things for salads. You can also approach them as an herb. So if you had basil and dill and that sort of thing in your garden and you didn't have quite enough and you wanted to chop up some herbs to sprinkle on top of something, celery leaves can go into that combination. So we're putting them in stock, but they're definitely edible. But bottom line is they should not be discarded. So I've got celery going in. Now notice that I do not have the bottom of the celery where the root was. It's always a little sandy. So we definitely need to think garbage in, garbage out. And it's not trash soup that we're making a stock. So ends of the onions, tons of flavor. There's tons of flavor in onion and garlic skins, and these also give the stock color. So they make it dark brown. And then I have, in this bag, I have celery, onion, and then some whole garlic cloves. And then if I were to add carrot to this, which I probably would, I don't add carrot peelings. A lot of folks do. It because carrot can overtake a stock and you need to have it at a smaller percentage in stock. When I think about a carrot peeling, I think about surface area. And if you have a ton of carrot peelings in your stock, that's really kind of a lot of carrot to draw from versus, say, like a chunk of carrot, like a half a carrot or a large dice of carrot. So that's why I don't use carrot peelings. I also don't peel carrots very often. In classes, you can totally eat a carrot that's been scrubbed clean with the peeling on it. We don't peel carrots in classes. So a piece of carrot for me is fine, but I don't use the peelings. The other things I don't use in stocks, just because they're very flavor forward, are things like bell pepper. So to me, you end up with a bell pepper liquid, which I guess is fine depending on what you're making, but I want more of a neutral flavor layered stock versus something that's very forward. So bell pepper would be one, and then asparagus. Asparagus stock is really only good for asparagus soup. It tastes like asparagus water to me. It's just not appealing to me, so I don't use that. In terms of the chicken, for this bag, that's going to obviously be a chicken stock, that back, because we did do that spatchcock chicken in that other episode. So the back is a great thing. Wing tips. I try not to have any other big pieces of leftover chicken. But the raw chicken, technically, when you look at the definitions of stock and broth, it's the raw chicken that makes a stock, and when it's cooked chicken, you're making a broth. That day after Thanksgiving, when you put that turkey carcass in water to make that beautiful liquid, you're making a turkey broth to then make a gumbo, which right on, let's all do it. I'm there for it. But if we want to get technical about what's a stock, what's a broth, typically the raw cut of meat goes into the pot, and that's what becomes a stock. So how do we get there? So in culinary school, it was a very long, arduous process. I was almost always doing it wrong. And we got graded, very strictly on it. And so I'm not here to make anyone adhere to those sorts of guidelines. One thing that you do that is a sort of a big rule when making stock is that you shouldn't be boiling it or vigorously simmering it. And that can be a little bit of a babysitting issue at the stove for several hours, making sure it's not boiling. When it boils, you're going to get cloudy stock, and it might not evenly pull certain flavors from some things rather than others. So that is actually a really good rule. And the way we do it here at Red Stick Spice is this bag, when it's chock full, they stay in the freezer. When this bag is chock full to the top, this bag gets dumped in our crock pot, just like in all many American households. Our crock pot on low gives a lazy bubble, and that's what you want. You want that lazy bubble where it's just popping the surface every once in a while, and our crock pot does it beautifully. We don't have to think about it. We set it up when we leave. It makes the stock overnight. We come in, we dump it, and we have stock for the week. So we are typically, more often than anything, making vegetable stock here at Red Stick Spice. It's a great neutral medium. We have tons of vegetables to do it with, and we don't have to be concerned with, let's say we're doing a seafood dish and we're using chicken stock, which seems a little wrong-headed, although you can get there doing that. But we most often make vegetable stock, and because of those onion skins that are in there, you get this glorious color. So this is a vegetable stock that we made. We store it in the fridge, and we draw from this all week. And so that's what's in our soup. Okay, so we need to take a look. We've got lots of bubbles. So let's give it a stir. And now we need to get our immersion blender, and we're going to blend it, and we're going to taste it, and we're going to check out our sandwiches, and then we're going to have soup and sandwiches. And do you feel okay about sharing with Josh and
yes,
Catherine?
I do.
Okay.
Those celery leaves were delicious.
Oh, did you like the celery leaves? There you go. Yep, that should not go in the trash. Definitely on salads or just as a garnish, but definitely in your stock. Okay, so we're going to get our immersion blender going and check our sandwiches, and we'll eat soon. You ready for soup and sandwich?
Yes.
Okay. So we need to talk about a couple of things about this soup before we puree it. First of all, the canned tomatoes that I use. So definitely when we're at the height of tomato season in Louisiana, we would be all about fresh tomatoes. But when it's not tomato season, it's not to say you can't eat a tomato. There's some great convenience products that are actually a really great product. One is canned tomatoes, which I always have stocked in my pantry. I think it's a great staple to have. And these specifically are fire roasted tomatoes, which that fire roasting caramelized the sugars in the tomatoes and brought out a lot of flavor. So a great product to have in your pantry. So we are going to puree this soup, and we're going to use our immersion blender. And so it's like a tiny blender on the bottom, and if I turn it on, the blades spin, and if I have the blades spinning while I put it in the soup, we're all going to wear it.
Let's not do that.
We're not going to do that. So we're going to put it in the soup, and you're going to move it around, trying not to lift it so that the blades spew the liquid. And I want to get this, now I'm all about a completely pureed soup. Like I want it like a bisque, super smooth and velvety. You could totally leave it part chunky if you like that sort of thing, but I like a completely smooth soup. So I'm the boss, and so we're going to make it completely smooth. Be careful not to lift that out of the liquid. Okay, go. There you go.
Can you smell the grilled cheese?
I can definitely smell the grilled cheese. I smell GBD, golden brown and delicious. Super technical term. And I'm actually going to take a look while you do that. That looks gorgeous. It's spinning around in a...
Kind of sections to the bottom.
It does. It sections to the bottom, but it's pulling up everything and pushing it through the blades and getting it silky smooth. So a couple of things are happening. It's actually sort of changing in color. We're getting more of this creamy, light red, almost going toward like an orange peach. And that's mainly because we're blending air into the soup. But you're starting to see your aromatic bits get smaller. And we actually want to see those as very tiny specks. We want this completely sweet. Let's take a look. Well, we've had a cheese explosion, which is not a bad thing. And let's take a peek. Ooh, my goodness.
Looks delicious.
That's golden brown and gorgeous. So those sandwiches are ready to go.
I think our soup is
And you feel good about, oh, that looks beautiful. Okay, so it's got teeny tiny bits of aromatics. You see little bits of green and red from the celery and the carrot.
turmeric plain.
And definitely color change from the turmeric for sure. That turmeric in the curry powder got to work in there and made this bright golden sort of color. So let's each grab a spoon and see how we did. It is blazing hot. Let's take a taste. That's delicious. Ooh, it's spicy. That
Spicy.
vindaloo, yeah.
The curry.
Yeah, really, really nice. But good heat on the back end, bright tomatoes,
Yes.
richness from all the other things that happen in there with the onion and a little bit of the toasting of the curry powder when we put it in with the aromatics. But that is gorgeous.
The coconut milk too.
Oh, and the coconut milk kind of just
Coconut-y.
smooths everything out. So I'm going to have you ladle up a couple of cups of the soup, and I'm going to get these sandwiches plated. So I have manners while we're on air, on camera, but later I'm just going to eat these little crusty bits of cheese because that's some pretty amazing stuff right there. So I'm going to get these out of the way, and then I'll move my parchment over and get these plated up. All right, and so how would you describe the color of these grilled cheese?
Crispy.
Crispy, that's a color?
Well, wait, I think an image comes to mind,
Yeah.
but not burnt.
No,
Just
no,
golden
absolutely
brown.
perfect golden brown. So feeding a crowd, how would this change things?
I've been thinking about that the entire time. I'd like
Because
normally butter,
think about your time at the stove making one grilled cheese after
flipping
the
it
other.
over,
Yeah.
putting both
What?
sides. Yeah.
What? This is
Game
like
changer.
exactly game changer.
The cheese is delicious.
Yeah.
I went for it.
So I'm cutting these into fingers, into strips, and I'm going to pile them up on a platter. And that way folks can come and grab a finger of grilled cheese. And
Good for tailgating.
perfect for tailgating or at home tailgating, like watching a watch party at home. This is definitely a rainy day, Netflix kind of day
Yeah.
meal for sure. But also what this meal can mean for a lot of folks is a supper that comes together in about 30, 40 minutes and an alternative to drive through or a convenience packaged frozen meal of some sort. So that's what it looks like to me. We had soup and sandwich nights in my family growing up a lot. We just didn't eat out much, and there just wasn't as much convenience processed food as there is now, you know, in the frozen section. I can remember when one of the big box grocery stores started renovating several years back, and they built in a lot more frozen space than they did anything else because of the way the food industry was going. So this is whole food, cooked from really solid ingredients that comes together quickly and is way better than anything processed or fast food. So look at that pile of sandwiches. And this looks like, to me, Clay's soccer team, coming over after practice or after a game. That would be perfect for them. So we've got our sandwiches, we've got our soup, and I say you and I should take a taste and dig in. So there's a spoon.
All right, I'm gonna do this.
There you go. It's all about surface area, Madeline. Super important. So look what that mayonnaise did on the outside of the sandwiches. Just super golden brown, actually possibly a little more evenly and more vibrant than even butter.
Definitely. It's nice to take a break from the tomato basil vibe and go to curry, which who doesn't?
Exactly. So I'm a big fan of tomato basil soup. I'm all for it, especially at the height of basil season.
Definitely.
But this is a really nice break to take it in a different direction. So how do we do? Another weeknight supper for you?
Definitely.
Good deal. Okay. This was fun. Thanks again for cooking with me. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.